Welcome to Teacher Talks, a podcast where teachers from the Shorewood School District come together to share their knowledge around current topics. We have created this podcast to connect with students and the community over this time of school closure due to the coronavirus. I am Mr. Nadolski, 7th grade math teacher at Shorewood Intermediate School.
And I am Mr. Kearns, Geometry and Algebra 2 teacher at Shorewood High School. It is very easy to go stir crazy during this time of quarantine. I know for myself, it's sometimes been difficult to stay motivated. Luckily today, we have a guest who specializes in teaching students how to be active and healthy individuals. Mr. James Weslaski joins us today. James is a health and phy teacher at Shorewood High School. James, how are you doing?
Good, guys. Happy to be on here. Super stoked to share some of my thoughts in this crazy time.
All right, great to have you. What have you been up to during the school closure? How are you staying active yourself?
Well, I've been just doing a lot of like house projects, really working on, little details, walking my dog a lot. She's been just like absolutely loving this. She has like no idea what's going on. Like if it was her decision, we'd have pandemics all the time. But yeah, so just doing that and then trying to stay up on schoolwork and trying to stay active myself.
That's great. Yeah, I agree with like the little house projects, and my dog is also going a little crazy having me home. So it's been fun to like get a little bit more bonding time with the dog, and it's like empty outside, so like we can kind of go anywhere we want on walks and hikes and stuff. So that's kind of fun too.
Oh, I know. Like, and she's just like, she's always just looking at me every day, like, why aren't you gonna leave anymore? And it's just really fun. So I've been enjoying that part of it, but it's been tough not being at school and seeing all the students on the daily.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. It's nice to be home, but also I think we all miss our students a lot, and just having those day-to-day interactions with them, and it's tough not being able to work with them. So that's a good point.
It'll be interesting to see as we transition to doing like more virtual schooling, how those day-to-day interactions look, and whether like it still feels like we're in school or like it feels like we're getting that personal connection. So I think we all became teachers because we enjoy working with students and we enjoy having that connection. And I'm really curious to see, is that something that we can replicate virtually, or is that something that just gets kind of lost in virtual schooling?
Oh yeah, like I feel like I've taken that all for granted, like just the little interactions every day, whether it's just like before class, during class, after class, those were really like the things that really brightened my day and made their day different. So it's really it's very eerie now to be able to only contact people like via the web.
Right,
so
right.
We talked about, you mentioned like a couple ways you're staying active, like walking the dog and stuff. But I think like we're all feeling like a little stir crazy being quarantined at home and whatever. So like what are some ways that we can stay physically active when our normal routine is just out the window right now?
Yeah, especially in this time where routine is gone. I think it makes it an extra little challenge to overcome. But really what you can do is people who have, home workout equipment obviously have an advantage because they can do, exercise bouts and that nature. But I think really you can really exercise and physically help your body in more ways than just exercise. Maybe that's just like eating right foods, even though that's something scarce right now. Maybe that's cooking new foods. Maybe that means sleeping 8 hours a night every single night. I know all my high schoolers would dream of doing that all the time. And then also, if you don't have exercise equipment, just being creative. There's awesome like YouTube videos online. You gotta filter through some weird stuff and some bad stuff, but of home workouts that you can do using like a milk jug filled with water as a weight. And it seems so silly while you're doing it, but like I'm telling you, if you do a workout, some bicep curls, tricep extensions, and squats with a milk jug full of water, like you're going to be sore the next day. So exercise, I don't know. I think it's always something that's possible. And it's something that's not only going to help you, feel physically better, but make you feel a little less, mentally anxious in this time. That's kind of crazy. So I know that's what my wife and I have been doing. We have 4 weights and that's it. But we've been just working out 3 times a week, lifting weights, walking the dog, and then also like doing yoga on our off days, going on YouTube, looking up yoga classes before bed, looking up yoga for better sleep in the morning if we're feeling anxious, yoga for anxiety. There's so many resources out there. And I think if people just took the time to search through what they wanted to do, they would have like endless opportunities.
I love that. I think I might try that water jug, filling a gallon with water. That's a good idea.
I'm telling you, it's no joke. It is no joke.
We only have 2 weights at home too, and they're 5 pounds and 8 pounds. And so I've been like doing like 30 reps on the 8 pound.
Yeah.
I wish I had like more of a home gym.
Just like feeling the burn, like doing whatever. And I mean, I don't want anyone to like, bring their house down, but I'll go down to my basement and go on my support beam and just do pull-ups.
Yeah.
Or I'll like, one time I went with my brother-in-law and we went to a parking lot with my truck and just like pushed my truck and put a rope around the hitch and towed my truck. Now that's like really intense. Don't go on any slopes by all means. Please make sure there's no hill when you're doing this, but just being creative, whatever that means for you.
We'll put a disclaimer at the bottom of the video talking about not pulling the truck up or down.
Yes, please. Okay? Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but yeah.
It's funny you mentioned doing home yoga because I've been doing some home yoga in the basement, and our basement has a smaller ceiling. So I found like a lot of the moves that like require like anything with your hands over your head, I just like can't do. So I'm like doing mountain pose like up here and stuff. It's just so goofy to like try to transition some of your workout routine like into a basement.
Mm-hmm.
I've also noticed my when I try to do a home workout, my dog would just keep jumping on me, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I would lay down to try to do a push-up, and he would jump on top of me or jump underneath me. He thought I was playing. So that's another thing we got to start maybe putting him in a little bit.
Oh, I'm with you. Yoga is impossible with a puppy that has energy. It's just like
good stuff. Well, one thing you talked about was how you're looking up all these new things on the internet to try to stay active. How, I guess for me, I found it a little difficult to, I guess, keep that motivation to stay active. It's been more than a week now, and how do you have any recommendations on kind of staying motivated, or what do you do for yourself to, I don't know if it's keeping a list, kind of a chart at what you want to do each day, or how do you stay motivated both mentally and physically at home?
Yeah. So this is a tough one, even outside of a pandemic, outside of a quarantine. This is the biggest thing for people, is just staying motivated to continually go to the gym or continually do that exercise. What I find is helpful to me is having someone to hold me accountable. All right. So my wife has been such a blessing in my life, and she's a teacher too. So she's obviously been home with me throughout this all. So we kind of made a plan together. We didn't have to you didn't have to write this out and say, I'm going to do this exactly this day, this day. Like I cannot miss it. I think it's important to be flexible, but make a goal for yourself. So we said we want to lift 3 times a week with our little weights in the basement. So usually that's Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. If we miss a day, we'll do it on Wednesday, And then we also said we want to do yoga 3 times a week as well. Ideally, we do yoga on the days we don't lift, just to kind of split it up. But if we have to double up one day because something happens or we're both busy with schoolwork, I think it's important to be flexible, and then I'll just double up the next day. So having someone to keep you accountable, and then kind of what I'm already saying is having a schedule, having a goal. Maybe for you need to write it out specifically. I'm going to work out at this time. For me, I think that's a little too much. I just like to say, hey, this day I'm going to lift, and I'm going to make it my goal to lift. And then this day I'm going to do yoga. I'm going to make it my goal to do yoga. Even if that means I'm only going to do yoga for 10 minutes, or I'm only going to lift for 10 minutes. Usually when I start, I finish it though. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's just getting workout clothes on, getting your headphones on, grabbing the weight, and then normally it's just going to happen.
Sure.
Yeah. I've heard, actually, it's funny, like a funny comparison. My dentist one time told me, this is like the most random comparison, but my dentist one time told me, if you have trouble flossing, just floss one tooth. All right. And somehow in our brain, when we floss one tooth, we have the desire to floss all the teeth. So I kind of took that into weight training. Like, I'm just going to do one lift, and then I do one lift and I end up doing my entire routine. So kind of going in with that weird mindset almost tricks you into getting through it all.
I like these ideas. These are all ideas that I feel like we could bring into kind of math as well, you know, like try one problem today, or if you're not understanding it, and then once you get it, you move on to more problems. And these are good motivational techniques. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And man, I mean, I would need more motivation for math, believe me.
I think, Stephen, that's true too for like setting a goal for regular practice, especially over the next couple of weeks when all of our assignments are like recommended but not required. Students could set a goal of, you know, obviously the goal is a little bit of math every day or a little bit of each subject every day, but maybe that's not realistic with what everyone's going through right now. And so maybe there's a goal like, I'm going to just do 20 minutes of math 3 times a week for like an hour or something. And so setting smaller goals, like I've certainly noticed in my personal life, when I set smaller goals that are more achievable and more likely to actually follow through. And, you know, it's like the New Year's resolution conundrum of like, you set 3 or 4 like huge year-long goals, and then you know, it's January 10th and you haven't done any of them. So I think that can hold true too, like during right now as we're setting like physical and mental health goals too.
Yeah, I love that too. Especially, I mean, that can relate to anything. So that's why making small goals, you know, are going to be the most ideal, most achievable, give you the most motivation.
One of the challenges that I've had, like being at home, and I actually worked from home for 5 years, and I remember this being a challenge of working from home too, is just like the change in routine for eating. Like we're not eating, like there's not a designated lunchtime anymore. And so like I'm snacking a lot and I'm not always making like the healthiest choices. And then I'm also more reluctant to go to the grocery store as often just because it's like nuts there. And so like the food that I have around the house like isn't always as healthy. So I think that's been like one of the biggest challenges for me in terms of like physical health, is just like making sure that I'm still eating healthily and regularly and drinking enough water and not just drinking like 8 cups of coffee all day. Do you have any like suggestions on just like ways to like keep the diet on and like keep the structure of meals on and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, and this is, you bring that up and it's just like hits home to me too, because like, I mean, I'll get bored throughout the day and I'm like, what am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to eat. And like, I'm going to eat a snack. Oh yeah. And it's really difficult. So, I mean, thank goodness I have my wife to kind of hold me accountable to that, because she's one of those people, like, we're having 3 meals a day and that's what we're doing. And I'm like the complete opposite. I'm just like munching on something at all time. But I think it's tough now, you know. They say the best thing to do at the grocery store is, you know, go after you eat. That way you're not getting things that you're going to overconsume. But, you know, with the grocery store being as crazy as it is, it can be kind of difficult. So really my suggestion is try to schedule it out, and whatever you do one day, continuously do. I mean, that's what we do at school, and that's how it's, you know, easy to keep that routine. But hey, if I'm like starving at, you know, 10 a.m. in between breakfast and lunch, maybe every day at 10 a.m. I'm going to have, you know, a Cliff Bar, or every day at 10 a.m. I'm going to have, you know, I'm going to make myself a little smoothie, something of that sort. But man, if someone could answer that question, you know, they'd probably be a millionaire. So I'm just like doing my best here.
It sounds like kind of your approach, and it seems like kind of the more successful approach to like staying healthy right now is just creating a new routine and just accepting that this is our like structural reality that we're working within right now. And like, let's just create a new routine and a new structure so that we can stay physically and mentally engaged in that.
Sure. Yeah. And that's really my thing, is because, we don't know the actual end date of this whole thing. I mean, Governor Evers, what did he say? April 24th, the stay-at-home policy goes until. So I mean, we have at least another month of this basic same situation we're in now. So you think about, for a month of constant snacking all day, that can really do some damage. Like that's 30 days. So I think it is important. And like I said, I mean, some people really like writing it all out and having a nutrition plan written out. To me, that kind of just overwhelms me. I like to just kind of keep it in my head, hey, at this time I'm going to do this, and so on. But, just doing your best, trying to get those non-perishable foods, trying to stay on the outside of the grocery store where it's more fresh foods, as scarce as it may be. And I think in a time like this where foods are being taken up, trying new foods, getting out of your same routine of having the same exact meals all the time, especially with maybe, I don't know, Flamin' Hot Cheetos being out of stock. I'm trying to think of just anything. If it's possible for you, or mom and dad or anybody to go out and just kind of get something different for one night. Maybe you guys never have seafood, one night. I don't know. I think it just, this situation we're in, as crazy as it is, I don't want to glorify it, but it's actually a really cool opportunity for us. We have all this extra time. Maybe you've never exercised, maybe you've never cared about your nutrition, but now you have this extra time. Here's your chance to do it. And especially for, kids who like really relied on, school, really relied on that time that they took in sports and those sorts of things. This extra time can really be used to, achieve some other goal, achieve some other talent you wanted to work on.
Yeah, I really like that idea of kind of setting that routine and trying to improve yourself throughout this process. So when we talk about routines like that, not only your physical, staying active physically, and eating healthy, what do you recommend for like a daily routine as far as also staying mentally healthy and mentally, I guess, motivated or mentally active throughout this process?
Sure. So I think, especially with the, what we've been saying, self-isolation, I think it can be like a scary term. But that doesn't mean social distancing, self-isolation doesn't mean you can't contact people. I mean, like, look at us right now. Like, we're having this conversation like so easily, and like we're being able to contact and talk to each other and give each other tips. So I think especially for students, it's a great time to, not just to like shut everyone out and, just feel alone in my house, but maybe if you have an opportunity to have a computer or have your phone, reach out to your friends, just say how you're doing, ask them how they're doing, reach out to your friends maybe you haven't talked to in a while. If you know grandma and grandpa, reach out to grandma and grandpa. Are you guys doing okay? Because it's tough for a lot of us to visit them. So really taking the time, talking to family you might not normally talk about, talking to friends you might not normally talk about. It's not only going to help them because they're saying, hey, you're reaching out to me. That's really nice. It's going to help you because you're having these conversations. Maybe they're going to give you some tips. Maybe you guys can reminisce on some funny stories or make some new stories. So I think that social aspect is something that's not lost, and it's something that can really help. And then what I really like, just because I teach yoga at Shorewood High School, I'm just a huge advocate for yoga, especially in a time like this. You go on YouTube, you search yoga, you have, I don't know, a billion options for videos. Even if it's something you've never done before, you have a chance to try it. You don't have a mat? Who cares? Use a rug. Use your carpeting. I think that can be something, the breathing, the breath, the meditation, and then also the stretching and physical work. It's just like, it's an unbeatable activity in a time like this.
Do you have any recommendations on yoga videos? You said there's so many. So somebody who's new to yoga, any good videos we could attach to this podcast?
Yeah, I could think of something. Like the most popular girl is Yoga with Adriene on YouTube. What I love about her, she has specifics. And I can write the name out. We can put the link down to her channel. She has specific things. So if you're feeling, if you want to become more flexible, she's got that. If you're feeling anxious, if you have lower back pain, if you need something more difficult, less difficult, she has a whole ton of adaptations. So I really like what she's doing. And if you're in my yoga class, you better watch out on Google Classroom. Yoga with Mr. Weslaski is coming soon.
I would subscribe to that, James.
Yes.
Put it on YouTube.
This is my chance.
Share the
my
glory,
chance to
okay?
go viral.
Yeah. So like first of all, I'm also a huge fan of yoga, and I used to be a lot more about like the physical aspects to it, and increasingly I'm embracing a lot more of like the mental and psychological aspects of it, like just being more connected with yourself, setting intentions for your day and for your practice, and just like being conscious of your breathing. I think all of that, as we talk about mental health, like those are the strategies that we recommend for students in the classroom when they're about to take a test, or if they're dealing with anxiety or trauma, setting goals, setting intentions, and kind of focusing within. So I would second yoga as like just this great at-home thing for staying both mentally and physically healthy. I know, like, so one of the things that I always struggle with, like whenever I lose structure, is like just maintaining a sleeping pattern of like going to bed at a reasonable time and then waking up at a reasonable time. And I'm thinking about you, James, like if your wife's a teacher too, like how easy it would be just to like sleep in until 10:30 or 11. And I can like picture so many of our students doing that. But that kind of like gets back to the routine too, though. Like you can set a wake up time and stick to that and get up and shower and eat breakfast like you normally would. And then you're just like up and ready for the day versus sleeping in and just like totally sleeping through the morning and then like throwing your schedule completely off.
Yeah, and that's what I think is a tough one, especially for teenagers, is the sleep pattern. Because like, I'm not trying to be perfect, because I'm going to say the first 3 or 4 days of off during this time, my wife and I definitely weren't waking up
I'll
super
second
reasonable.
that. We caught up on some sleep the first few days.
Yeah, exactly. So, but no, that's the thing is like, hey, I'm going to get up at this time. I'm going to start my day. And, the same goes for, why when you take a 2-hour nap in the middle of the day, you can't fall asleep at night, it just throws off your routine. So I think that's a big thing, physically and mentally, is getting that sleep. And I think it's something that we all lack. You can go into crazy benefits of sleep, whether it's mental health, mental awareness, even injury prevention. They did a study, I don't want to go too in depth with this, but University of Tennessee did a study. Athletes who got 8 hours or more of sleep every night were 1.7, I think it was. So almost twice as, athletes that got 8 hours or less were twice as likely to get an ACL tear. Twice as likely, just because they weren't getting above 8 hours of sleep per night. So not only those mental attributes, but physical as well. It's crazy the power that sleep has on us.
That is really interesting. And especially with how common ACL tears are, it's interesting if there's a correlation there with the sleep schedule. Mm-hmm. So we've got virtual learning starting next week. Are you excited? What are you thinking for your students to do over the virtual learning period? You talked about yoga a little bit.
Yeah, so I teach 3 classes at Shorewood High School. So if you're at the intermediate school, you might see me for integrated health, which is our freshman class. Or if you like me enough and like the classes enough later on, I teach yoga and strength training as electives. But right now I'm working with our other department members for integrated health or our freshman class. We're going to do more so kind of you choose your exercise, you choose your workout. Show us what you did, talk about it. What did you like? What did you want to change? What did you not like? Things of that sort. And then in the health aspect, we'll do a series of articles that just talk about wellness, especially to a time like this. Yoga, I talked about, probably one of the ones I'm most excited for is making my own videos. I'm just going to try to keep our same routine going on from the year, and hopefully put those on Google Classroom. And if students have a chance to follow along with their devices, or I might write it out if that's something that's being a little more difficult to get to. And then finally, strength training. Just because we were talking about like, hey, everyone doesn't have equipment, it's going to be more so, what do you plan to do? I want you to make a plan, and I want you to stick to it, and I want you to tell me what you've been doing to be active. What equipment have you been using? I'm always like, I love going to school because the students, especially I think in Shorewood, are so flippin' smart that like I learn stuff every single day. Like there's like, they always are giving me their ideas, and I'm like, oh, that's a great idea, and I implement it in my class. So I think especially in a class like strength training, they can really be able to, take their own workout goal and implement it into their own life.
Cool. Well, James, thank you so much for joining us. I know that I learned a lot, and I have a lot of things to adopt into my home quarantine practice now in terms of staying physically and mentally healthy. I'm going to make sure I buy the gallon milk jugs next time I'm at the supermarket so that I can have some home weights. So again, thanks for joining us, James. One of the things that we've been doing with our podcast is wrapping them up with a Shorewood shout out where we recognize something great that's going on in the Shorewood community. We want to end on a positive note because there's a lot to be anxious and stressed about in our current time. So Stephen's going to share our Shorewood shout out for this episode.
It's time for your Shorewood shout out. Yes, so the Shorewood shout out today goes to the Red Gen group that works. It's a group of guidance counselors from the Shorewood School District that puts together a collection of tips and resources on self-care during this quarantine. So it's really cool. If you go to the Shorewood School District page, we'll have a link to it on this podcast. They give you a list of just self-care tips. So ways that you can stay healthy, ways that you can stay active, ways to manage your phone use. So whether it's grayscaling your phone because the color apps are attractive to you and it makes you want to go use your phone more. So I thought that was a really cool tip. Also just classes you can take with your family, or adult classes live online that you can decrease stress and increase happiness. So some really cool tips coming out of the Shorewood Red Gen group. So thank you all for that. And thank you for listening today. Once again, if you could comment, subscribe, let us know how you're doing. What are you going to do to take these tips that James gave us today? How are you going to stay active? We want to hear. So thank you.
Thank you, Shorewood.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Bye.